Well, Kathy, I guess the big question will be, what exactly will law enforcement do? How, if they will have the necessary logistics to make sure that they are able to have an incident-free funeral for the younger brother of the former president. And of course, we know that as a country, we're still counting the cost of the unrest that played out over the past week. And we had, as of this afternoon, that the latest number of the deaths is 234. And obviously, we do know that those who had started the unrest had used the former president's name, and this is not to say that he was responsible for that, but I guess that will be one of the considerations by law enforcement agencies. But without speculating or anything, let me introduce my guest here, Kathy. It is the spokesperson of the Department of Correctional Services, Singabakho Nxumalo. Mr. Nxumalo, we know that the application has been made by the former president to attend the funeral. I guess the starting point is, has that decision been made? And if not, when can we expect it?
A very good evening, and thank you for having us. You are correct. An application has been made by the former president, Mr. Jacob Zuma, to temporarily leave a correctional facility in order to attend to a family bereavement on the grounds of compassionate leave. That application is before us. It is being considered, and at the right time, a decision will be made. Right now, that decision is yet to be taken.
So I can assume that will be the next few hours, given the fact that the funeral is tomorrow?
At the right time, that decision will be made.
All right.
What matters here is that we need to provide feedback to the inmate concerned to say this is the outcome of your application, and that must also take into consideration, therefore, the time having to travel to that particular residence if that application is approved.
Now, given the fact that you've already said that the former president, that's in another interview, that he's considered low risk, can one assume, and you also said that the process is an easy process really, can one assume that it is almost a foregone conclusion that given those dynamics that he will be allowed to attend the funeral?
Yes, he is considered to be of low risk. That is due to the classification that was conducted and the outcome of it, and also a short-term serving inmate. But there's quite a number of other elements, so-called variables, that must be considered. So all of those elements will have to be taken into consideration, and then arrive at a particular outcome, which must be fair to the inmate to say, due to the following grounds, we've opted to take this particular decision. Remember that all inmates must be treated, as equal. We need to respect their rights. Hence, we have an obligation to make it a point that whatever decision that we make must be justifiable fully for that person concerned.
You make the point that all inmates are equal before the law, and granted, that is the fact. But obviously, this is the former president of the country. Now, in talking about the variables you mentioned that are considered, would the current prevailing political situation be one of the considerations that are made looked at the department before arriving at that decision about the requested leave?
There's quite a lot that they will need to look into, but if you look at, say, internal factors, outside factors, do you have measures to mitigate against some of those factors? Can you respond in case a particular incident were to take place? The objective is that an inmate must be kept safe at all times, must be protected, but also, hence I've said, we need to be fair. If those factors of the making of that particular person or not, therefore you cannot disadvantage a person because of certain factors. Hence, I've been very clear in saying that we ought to consider everything, that is before you, and arrive at a decision which, must be fair to the inmate, to the correctional system. Then other security measures must also be factored in to say, do you have apparatus to respond to whatever risk that you may identify? If, let's say, for instance, you are taking Singabakho to Nxumalo and the situation is tense, can you protect him going, home, also bringing him back to the facility? If not, can you rope in other law enforcement agencies to assist? Are they available to do that? At the end of the day, you are taking someone who's been sentenced, who's serving a term. You are that person temporarily is leaving a facility, and that person must come back to the facility alive and safe. So it's all that matters. Hence, then, when you look at the application, you've got to consider all these factors and take a decision which is fair to the inmate and to the correctional system.
Of course, security is a big factor here, and I would imagine, and as I said, we're not speaking about any ordinary South African. This is a former president, and I would assume that in this particular case, that there would be other departments that are involved in coming to that very decision. Is that correct? In forming that decision?
I don't want to preempt the outcome of the application, but how it works is that when an inmate is to leave a correctional facility, be either going to court, to an outside public hospital or any other place, there must be a security plan. That security plan is therefore designed to make it a point that you are able, one, to transport that inmate to that particular destination in a safe way and bring that person back again safe and secure. So even if, let's say in this case, Mr. Zuma is granted that leave, that will have to be put into place. But then we can't preempt that. I don't know what is the outcome, but what is cardinal here, for every inmate leaving a facility, you need to have a security plan. Whether that security plan involves other law enforcement agencies, it's a decision, for those authorities delegated to do that. But it's something which is kept a secret. Someone like me, I've never seen it, but it does exist, and it's something that must be securely guarded in order to make it a point that you do not compromise your system, because should you release the security plan out there, it may defeat the very same purpose that you're putting it in place for.
Sure, and you make the point here that the decision has not yet been made, and without prejudging that decision, generally, given the fact that this is temporary leave, compassionate leave that can be offered to any inmate, how long can an inmate remain out of custody or at the particular destination where they need to be on compassionate grounds? In other words, do they need to be back at the facility back on the same day?
How it works is that an inmate will make an application to say, I hereby apply to attend to a memorial service for my grandmother. The memorial service will be on a Saturday, starting at 12, ending at 2. I'm therefore requesting to leave a correctional facility on a Friday because of other responsibilities that I have to play, and return on a Sunday. Then when we consider that application, we may say, the reasons are fair for you to attend to that particular function. However, you may not leave,